Greetings, East Africa. You are just in time for another journey of your world on this first Monday of December 2020. Glad you could join us and that you are alive and well despite the year that has been. Now, speaking of which, this year has been characterized by a lot of pain, whether it is due to a loss of a loved one, loss of a job or a source of income, or due to poor health. Now, in the medical field, pain can be classified depending on its effects or duration. And today we would like to understand living with chronic pain. What causes it? How can you manage it? What are the effects of living with chronic pain? My name is Gladys Gachanja, and this morning we answer these and many other questions. Stay tuned. As I mentioned, we focus on managing chronic pain and the impact it has on those living with this reality. Morocco campuses are a dream come true for budding geeks where its skills are in high demand. Well, it is a race against time to save 5 giraffes threatened by floods in Kenya. And elsewhere, Wuhan artists begin to pay homage to their city with works referencing its coronavirus suffering and subsequent rebirth. Thank you for joining us on this broadcast. As I mentioned, we're focusing on living with chronic pain. What does it mean? What are the effects of the same? And the question of the day to you is, are you living with any chronic pain? How do you cope with it? Talk to us. That hashtag is a new normal on our social media handles. And remember, you can text or call in using that number at the bottom of your screen. But before we get to all that, let's take a look at the effects of COVID-19 around the world in as far as the numbers are concerned. And this morning, that number stands at 67,392,289 confirmed cases of COVID-19 around the world. Out of that number, 46,581,935 have totally recovered. And unfortunately, we have lost 1,541,745 people to COVID-19. Now, in Kenya, that number stands at 88,380 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the country. 68,929 of them have totally recovered, and unfortunately we have lost 1,526 Kenyans to COVID-19. Now, do remember that those numbers keep going up by the day, and that's why we keep reiterating here on Your World is that you need to keep wearing your mask. You need to social distance and, of course, wash your hands regularly. Now, before we get to that conversation of the day that I mentioned earlier, let's take a look at some of the stories making headlines this morning. And with its rows of sleek computers and ultra-modern study methods, Morocco's 1337 campus is a dream come true for budding geeks in a country where its skills are in high demand. Now, conceived as a paradise for coders, the center offers project-based training on programming, innovation, and building IT systems. Fatima Zara Karouch, a student, says 1337 is more than a school. It is a very new and different concept here in Morocco and in Africa. Why? Well, 1337 came to radically change the academic system in Morocco and Africa. Here you are free to come whenever you want to come to work, and the moment you walk through the door, there are no classes, there are no teachers, there is no school year, so everything changes. The moment you come to 1337, you are a student and a teacher at the same time. Back in the country, and a team of wildlife conservationists are in the midst of a daring rescue operation to save 8 giraffes from a flooded island in western Kenya. The team is using a specially adapted barge to float the giraffes one by one from Longicharo Island to the Kenyan mainland, as rising water levels have left the island inhabitable. The operation is being coordinated by the Kenya Wildlife Service, Save Giraffes Now, and the Northern Rangelands Trust.
Very well.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa announces new localized restrictions to stem a resurgence of COVID-19 in the south of the country amid growing fears and new infections could spiral into a second wave. As the festive season and summer break approaches, Ramaphosa insists this virus does not take a holiday.
We can only prevent a second wave if all of us respect the rules, the measures and the protocols that have been put in place for the protection of everyone. Now, following a recommendation of the National Coronavirus Command Council, and after consultation with premiers, metro mayors, and traditional leaders, Cabinet has decided to declare the Nelson Mandela Bay Metropolitan Municipality as a coronavirus hotspot. We must remember that as much as we want to relax, this virus does not relax. And this virus does not take a holiday.
Now, away from that, in the Hashaba camp in Sudan, Ethiopian physicians, medical professionals and nurses offer free treatment to refugees who have fled fighting in the Tigray region. The director of emergencies at the camp says nearly 16,000 people are living there.
We have enough health professionals, but some problems have happened for us. We don't have a shelter, we don't have a bedroom. We sleep on the ground only, the health professionals. So it's difficult, and we have no salary. We are giving a free service, so it's difficult to live here. It is a challenge. We need already to give a supportive from any partnership, because by financial income and also by shelter, we don't have any clothes, we don't have any money, so we need to support us, any foreign body or any partner.
It is very difficult to explain which happened in that, and there are many people comes to our health center due to the gunshot, and we are in distress to treat the patients which comes from different areas due to the accident.
Still on that conflict, Ethiopian National Defense Force troops discover a depot containing many weapons and ammunition kept by the Tigray People's Liberation Front after the army raided the regional capital, Mekelle. Ethiopia has granted the United Nations access to deliver aid to the northern region of Tigray following weeks of lobbying amid military operations there. The agreement signed by Ethiopia's peace minister comes weeks after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed sent in troops and warplanes in a campaign targeting leaders of the region's ruling party, the Tigray People's Liberation Front. Now, thousands have died in subsequent fighting, according to the International Crisis Group, while tens of thousands have fled into neighboring Sudan. Now, long established in countries such as Belgium, France and China, pigeon racing only took off in Senegal over the past decade after hobbyists, ornamental bird breeders, stumbled across the sport on the internet. Mustafa Gouye, a pigeon racer, says a pigeon fancier means someone who has carried pigeons, who breeds pigeons, who trains pigeons and who participates in races. It is a sport created by Europeans. It was imported here. We discovered pigeon racing through the internet, but before we used to be pigeon breeders only. He added, raising pigeons is not easy because they end up with diseases and you have to know how to raise the pigeons, what they eat so that they can be in good form and very good health. So it takes knowledge. It also takes a lot of time. Back to that Ethiopian conflict, European Commissioner for Crisis Management Yanis Lenarcic visits Ethiopian refugees who fled the Tigray conflict during his visit to Rakuba reception camp in Sudan's eastern Gedaref state. More than 45,000 people have escaped from northern Ethiopia since November 4th after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed ordered military operations against leaders of Tigray's ruling party in response to its alleged attacks on federal army camps.
I spoke with a number of refugees in this camp today, and what is perhaps most painful to hear is that they have zero information, no information whatsoever about their family members, about their relatives and friends who stayed behind. They know nothing about their family members, whether they're alive, whether they're well. And this, as we know, is also due to the communication blockade that persists. I urged again the Ethiopian authorities to lift the communication blockade, to provide access to humanitarian workers and for humanitarian goods, and of course to cease hostilities. This has been going on for too long. Military solution is not going to be a solution. There will be no military solution to this issue, which is primarily a political one. So I call upon the Ethiopian authorities and all others involved, to stop violence.
Everything at our homeland, we don't have those.
Well, to our conversation of the day, and we're focusing, as I mentioned, on living with chronic pain. Now, to help us understand this journey much better, in studio, I'm joined by Dr. Lee Nguge Kigera. He is anesthesiologist and pain specialist. Yay, I was able to say that word. Then joining us virtually, we have Mary Murugi, who is living with undifferentiated connective tissue disease, UCTD, and also trigeminal neuralgia. Hey, she will tell us more about that in a bit. Then, of course, we're joined by Jambi Koikai, who lives with endometriosis. She is an endo warrior. And Laura Litaba, who is living with fibromyalgia. Thank you, ladies, for joining us on this conversation. And I'll start off with you, Dr. I think it's imperative that we actually define what chronic pain is.
Thank you for having me on studio today. So probably I can just start by describing what pain is in the medical sense, because we have a definition for it, which is basically a sensation you feel, and also it has also an emotional component to it. And usually is a response to either tissues getting injured or a possibility of injury going on. So once you move from getting that definition of pain, you end up now to categorize what is chronic. And maybe just a quick mention. Acute pain is what you would ordinarily get when you get an injury, either you get a cut or something, you have a quick withdrawal, and then with the cut healing, the pain goes away. Mm-hmm. So now brings us to what is chronic pain. Now there are conditions where sometimes the healing goes on, but the pain doesn't go away. And that's one category where you can't find any injury. They'll tell you, you know, I broke my hand, now it's okay, but now my hand is still in pain 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 months later. And then you have another subcategory of chronic pain where you have conditions where the pain persists. We don't have cures for them sometimes, or the cures are difficult, or the situation is so complex that you do need additional interventions to get to control that. So those are the two broad categories of what chronic pain would be. One where we don't have, the injury has gone, and the other one where you have conditions which persist on.
Okay. Now, when you talk about conditions that persist on, and that's why we have some of the panelists who live with some conditions that have come with chronic pain and it has persisted, what are some of those that you've dealt with?
Generally, in the pain clinic, we get to see the biggest one in the world, and even here in Kenya, is still low back pain and neck pain, where you have pain persisting 6 weeks plus, and with interventions, and possibly sometimes nothing is going on. We also have headaches as a big one, not just in Kenya, also in the world. And then we have other conditions from cancer to connective tissue diseases and the subcategories. We have things called chronic regional pain. So basically where you had an injury, but the arm is still paining or the leg is still paining. So those tend to have the biggest proportion of what we see here locally.
And when you say headaches, are we referring to migraines?
Yes, we have migraines, which generally migraines and the subtypes. Yes.
Okay, and migraines are a disease on its own, or they are a symptom of something else going on?
The migraines, they are their own subcategory and a whole classification of headaches, of which the neurologists basically deal with that. But there are some of the reasons why we have people in chronic pain in the world.
And what are the signs that let you know that what you're dealing with is now chronic pain as opposed to just the usual pain? Time frame, perhaps?
The biggest one is actually time frame. That we define chronic pain. If you've lived with pain or recurring pain for 3 months, then you fall into that definition of chronic pain. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's get to understand it better from those that wear these shoes. And I'll start off with you, Mary Murugi. Now, you live with undifferentiated connective tissue disease. Let's start off with that one first. If we can have the graphics on there to just understand it a little bit better. Well, this is a term used to describe a condition in people who have symptoms of a combination of disorders, primarily lupus, scleroderma, rheumatoid arthritis, and polymyositis. Now, this undifferentiated connective tissue disease has symptoms as such: arthralgia, which is joint achiness; arthritis, swollen and warm joints, often with redness of the overlying skin; rashes, usually on the face, which can worsen due to sun exposure; alopecia, which is hair loss; Raynaud's phenomenon, which is where there's a color change in your hands and feet in response to the cold. And also others seen are oral ulcers, where you get sores inside the mouth; xerophthalmia, which is a dryness of the eyes due to decreased tears; and xerostomia, which is actually dry mouth due to decreased saliva. And in some people, photosensitivity has been seen, which is a development of rashes or other symptoms after sun exposure; and neuropathy, which is abnormal nerve sensations, usually in the fingers or toes, ranging from numbness to tingling to pain. Well, Mary, we have listed these symptoms. Where do you categorize your condition at this moment?
Basically, I'd say I have 3/4 of the symptoms. And today I'll be having these symptoms, tomorrow I'll be having these other symptoms. So it's definitely a thing that I have to constantly have to deal with every other day. I'm glad that I continue to have more information about it and learning how to manage it day by day.
Now, I noticed that you had said earlier on you were diagnosed a long time ago with severe rheumatoid arthritis, but after a while, that diagnosis was actually revised. Why?
Basically, my pain story started as a back injury following an injury I acquired in the gym. And after my spinal surgery, that's when I started having the autoimmune symptoms. And because of the joint swelling, joint achiness, the fatigue, and also my lab tests suggested that yes, I had rheumatoid arthritis, and it's the achiness and the joints is something I've dealt with for a very long time. So after the many treatments, because once you're diagnosed with the rheumatoid arthritis, there are treatments that you start with. But I continuously failed on treatments. And eventually we had now to seek another doctor. This was the 19th doctor that I saw. And after test and more tests and basing on my history and the results, that's when my diagnosis changed to UCTD.
And with UCTD, what are the pain symptoms that you face?
So something about UCTD, you have symptoms of various things. You can have symptoms of lupus, you can have symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis or myositis. So basically, one thing that I constantly face is constant fatigue. No matter how many hours I sleep, I'll wake up tired. I face joint pain, joint swelling. So that's most times you think it's arthritis. And also I suffer with chronic back pain. So constantly I'm ever having a back pain. And then there's also the photosensitivity. And recently I actually started developing the malar rash. And basically, yeah, that's it. But the fatigue really just gives you a low blow. You know, you can't do anything when you're so tired.
Okay, let's deal with UCTD now that you deal with two conditions. So first off, Dr. UCTD, you've had some of those chronic pain symptoms that she deals with, back pain, numbness, and around the joints. Are these similar or common things that you see, especially with patients with some of these conditions?
Yeah, generally, when we work at the pain clinic, most of our patients come through referrals. They don't come to the pain clinic as a first port of call. So they undergo a process, maybe go to other doctors, because we find, for example, connective tissue disease, like what she has, is something handled by rheumatologists. And then if for any reason they would want any particular intervention beyond what they're able to do, they send them to the pain clinic. So the ones who get to come to us, yes, we see this.
Yes. And when we talk about rheumatoid arthritis, a lot of, joint issues and all that, how do you handle or how do you manage this pain?
Most of the patients, you find the rheumatologists do a good job if you do get to see a rheumatologist. Unfortunately, just like most professions in Kenya, there's a severe shortage. So you probably have to be in an urban center to be able to see a rheumatologist. Since it's based on a disease where the immune function is hypersensitive and is kind of destroying the tissue of the body, they're able to give anti-inflammatory medications, which are pretty much effective in most of the cases. So the rheumatologists, once in a while, they do send patients to us for particular procedurals or particular things we can do.
All right. And when they send them to you, what exactly are you looking into most often than not?
So for us, as I said, the chronic pain is something complex. You'll find generally it not only do you have the biological issue, like for example, we're talking about the back, we're talking about the fingers, and we also have what is called a psychological input towards driving the chronic illness. We also have the social input, and that's why we apply a model called the psychosocial model, because we found that if you only handle one part of it, say the joints only, without looking at how else it's affecting the other parts of someone's life, you might not be able to get the particular results you want. So for us, number one, we evaluate. We get to see what are the composition of these three areas I mentioned. What are the main contributors? Are you also having a bit of depression? Are you having a bit of anxiety as drivers of also this chronic problem? What do you hope to achieve? Because for some people, I can tell you, like I had a patient who says for her the biggest thing was she wish she could kneel down in church and say a prayer, which she had not done in maybe 3 years. So if she can get her back and her knees and her hip to work to be able to do that, that's a big goal for her. So we tend to evaluate, have a treatment plan, based on achievable objectives. We know that pain, to get zero pain, by the time you've gone through all this, is a difficult target, and actually you end up chasing our tails. So we set realistic goals towards pain management, and the main thing is, one, to get you up to function. Like she's described, she's having lower back pain, maybe she can't leave the house, maybe she can't go to work, maybe she can't take care of her family. So for us, those are goals that we can work with, and generally we work in a multidisciplinary team. Okay. So depending on if low back pain is the main driver, and she's on maximum or she's on good anti-inflammatory medication, sometimes it's a mechanical thing. There's nerve blocks, then what that means, the numbing medication we can put in particular nerve areas, and therefore able to give a bit of some pain relief. We combine that with physiotherapy, exercise. We send them also to psychologists. So we have a big team that is able to achieve better results for those ones who are having difficulty.
Okay, so Murugi, let's look at the other condition that you live with, trigeminal neuralgia. Now, if we can have those graphics up to just understand this condition, it is a chronic pain condition that affects the trigeminal nerve, which carries sensation from your face to your brain. Now, symptoms of trigeminal neuralgia are pain in areas supplied by the trigeminal nerve, including the cheek, jaw, teeth, gums, lips, or less often the eye and forehead. Episodes of severe shooting or jabbing pain that may feel like an electric shock. Spontaneous attacks of pain or attacks triggered by things such as touching the face, chewing, speaking, or even brushing your teeth. Bouts of pain lasting from a few seconds to several minutes. Episodes of several attacks lasting days, weeks, months, or even longer than that. Some people have periods when they experience no pain, and attacks that become more frequent and intense over time. Murugi, what is your story with trigeminal neuralgia?
Trigeminal neuralgia, it's hell, I'd say that. And it was secondary to my autoimmune disease. And it started like just a normal toothache, but very severe. And one thing, my teeth were basically numb. And I thought, let me go to a dentist, see maybe I'm having a dental problem. But it was nothing related to, to any dental issue. And what I described trigeminal neuralgia is the same way you'd go plug a phone in a socket and then it gives you a shock. So that's what I feel, shocks, constant shocks on my face. And mine is triggered by cold and the wind, and even talking too much. Sometimes it triggers an attack. But the beauty is I have months of remission, and then it comes back, and it is something I wouldn't want to describe.
Okay, now to just better understand what she's trying to describe when she says it's like putting a phone on a charger and getting an electric shock, here's a video of somebody going through an attack of trigeminal neuralgia.
So sorry, baby. I'm so sorry.
All the videos put up on YouTube by those who live with this condition to better explain what an attack looks like, because when they are not going through the attack, you can never know that they live with this condition. Now, particularly that video, the wife says she recorded it when the husband had just finished eating. Murugi, for you, when you think back, what provokes the attacks?
The cold weather is my greatest trigger. So whenever, because I live in Mombasa, so if I go to Kericho, which is a very cold area, instantly my teeth go numb. I can't talk, I can't eat for weeks or even days, and it is so excruciating. And when it happens, there's nothing no one can do. You just have to let it pass. And it happens, for my case, the pain lasts between 10 seconds to 20 seconds. And it can keep going over and over and over again. Yeah. So my trigger is the cold. So I avoid the cold, and even the cold breeze, cold wind, I try avoid that as much as possible.
Oh, wow. Okay. Dr. Ari, have you ever dealt with a trigeminal neuralgia patient?
They're quite common. We get referrals from the dentists, from the maxillofacial surgeons, and I think our story just highlights the key thing about chronic pain, that one, it's debilitating. It interferes with your life on many levels. The stress, you'd imagine her going, someone even eating, just brushing their teeth. So, and you'll find generally by the time they're coming to us, they've been through several steps in terms of seeing doctors or possibly different medications. So yes, they do come to us, and we sit down, and once we have a diagnosis, because again, once someone is referred, you have to check which level of the trigeminal nerve it has branches and specifically. So there are plans for medication. Sometimes that works very well. The different classes of medication, again with all the side effects, but still you get someone better and able to eat. The other thing with chronic pain, as she's mentioned, it has what we call remissions, periods where there's nothing going on, she's okay, and then you get maybe flares, periods when you have the condition coming back. So we can do medications, we do some special injections, again, just to go to where the nerve is. You put in some numbing medication. Sometimes that gives also relief for a longer period of time. And for more difficult cases, we do have chemicals we can inject in that area of the nerve to get the nerve not to respond. Because what happens with pain is that signals get carried from the face. You find, like now, someone just brushing their teeth. Those electric signals carried from the face to the brain, you have to kind of interrupt them. So that, because you're finding eating is a normal activity, brushing teeth is a normal activity. So that should not ideally bring about any pain. So one way is to interrupt. And again, we also look at the wholesome effect on your life. Does it also affect your emotions and many other things? And we get to see how to intervene. They also, with the psychologist, we're able to get certain techniques of cognitive, for example, behavioral therapy and biofeedback. So there's plenty of steps that can be taken to be able to have a control of trigeminal neuralgia.
Okay, well, every day we learn here on Your World, and we'll get to hear more of your journey, Murugi, in a moment. Let's now listen to Jambi Koikai's story. Well, she has been very vocal about her journey with endometriosis, and for those that probably are hearing this for the first time, let's have those graphics on the screen. And this condition is actually often a painful disorder in which tissue that normally lines the inside of your uterus, the endometrium, grows outside the uterus. Now, the condition most commonly involves the ovaries, fallopian tubes, and the tissue lining your pelvis, but can also spread to other parts of the body like the lungs or even the brain. Now, symptoms of endometriosis: painful periods. They may also experience lower back and abdominal pain. Pain during intercourse, pain during or after sex is common with this condition. And of course, pain with bowel movement or urination during a menstrual period. Now, others also face excessive bleeding, which is occasional heavy menstrual periods or bleeding between periods, and for some, infertility. Sometimes endometriosis is actually first diagnosed in those seeking treatment for infertility. Now, other signs of this condition are fatigue, diarrhea, constipation, bloating, or even nausea, especially during menstrual periods. Well, Jambi, this has been your reality for a while now. For those that haven't heard about your story, where are you at in as far as endometriosis is concerned?
Good morning, Gladys, and good morning, everybody. I'm doing well. As for those who are not aware, I was battling endometriosis for the last 21 years, and it spread all the way to my lungs. And I went through 21 surgeries, and I needed that special surgery that I had to get all the way in the States. And that surgery is known as excision. So they actually cut out the endometriosis from my lungs. They took out my appendix and they cut out the endometriosis in my uterus. And it had spread all the way to my teeth as well. So I'm doing well. I'm recovering really well, and I'm grateful. I haven't had a lung collapse since I came back home. I was also battling adenomyosis, so that's under management, but I'm doing really, really well.
Okay, when you talk about the pain, and we've also described some of the pain that comes with this condition, on a scale of 1 to 10, what were you dealing with?
I was dealing with 20.
Wow.
I was dealing with something that couldn't even be, it couldn't be managed with morphine. I call it apocalyptic pain, devilish pain, the kind of pain that is inexplicable, you feel like someone is stabbing you, pouring acid on you, and crushing a barbed wire in your abdomen and trying to squeeze in, more acid in your lungs. You can't breathe. You're drowning in your own oxygen. It was pain that I can never describe. I'm in a support group of women who are battling endometriosis, and the women who have children, and they're battling endometriosis, and they say that endometriosis is actually more painful than labor, and it's horrific pain. It's a full body disease. It affects your entire body, so it's just not about periods. It will affect your limbs. It will affect your nerves. It will affect your teeth. And you're dealing with all these symptoms all at once, and there's no treatment for it. I mean, there's no cure for it. And especially here in Africa, we're so disadvantaged at the fact that we do not have specialists. So we're constantly dealing with, people diagnosing themselves, self-diagnosing and just making concoctions of painkillers that are not working, and then our bodies become immune to the pain, and you constantly have to deal with the side effects. It's a total mess.
Okay, now you described such excruciating pain, and we're saying some of this pain it recurs as often as monthly. Was this the case for you?
Yeah, for some it's constant. For some it's not even monthly. But for me, immediately I would start ovulating. I would feel the symptoms of thoracic endometriosis, which is endometriosis in the lungs. The onset, the onset of the symptoms is always from the right shoulder. So I'd feel a serious sharp pain that would make me feel like my hand is paralyzed. So I'm not able to write. I'm not able to carry a handbag. I'm not able to even stretch my hand. So I literally have to use my left hand to hold my right hand. So when I'm walking, I'm supporting my right hand with my left hand, because I can't even let my hand down because of the pain. And so that would come down all the way to my lungs, and that would be a sign that my period was here. So I would go to the hospital, and they'd carry out a surgery to be able to drain out the fluid in the lungs so that the lungs would expand. But that was just management. It wasn't really treating the disease. And so this happened over so many it happened over such a long period of time. And between 2015 and 2018, I went through 18 surgeries in Kenya, and that was really painful. It was, if we had specialists, I would never have gone through all of that.
We hear you, Jambi, and definitely, Daktari, just listening to her story, the excruciating pain can literally bring you to your knees, because especially for endometriosis, it's a monthly occurrence. So by the time a patient is coming to you and they already have a diagnosis, how do you handle them?
Jambi is my hero on many levels. I've heard her story so many times, and she does fantastic work for advocacy for endo. So again, it's one of those things, again, maybe sometimes takes a bit of time before a diagnosis comes through, because by the time you move from one doctor to another, you get a gynecologist who is able to take you through the process. So you get this spectrum. Some people where the management sometimes a bit easier, maybe they're able to do surgery and and see the endometrial tissue, cut it out, and sometimes that sorts it out for some. But for some where it spreads so much and then induces other changes in the nervous system, so that you find that even sometimes with removal of that endometrial tissue through surgery, that sometimes the nervous tissue has changed. And now it's feeding back and generating pain. Even sometimes, that's why sometimes I think she mentioned not only during her period that people even have this pain, even not throughout the cycle, not just either ovulation or. So for us, again, it's quite complex. It's difficult. So I agree, it's complex and difficult, and that's why I said we work with a team of psychologists. But key thing we're able to do is some people, they respond to simple painkillers, and then we move on to stronger painkillers. We don't like using opioids for non-cancer pain, but in a few patients, especially when we have the very acute pain, she's talked of pain level of 20. Sometimes we combine that. Sometimes we're able to combine with other numbing medication, as I said, either to the spinal cord. But again, it's clear to know that if the tissue is not removed, sometimes this is just symptomatic management. You're just trying to control the pain for someone to be able to live a better quality of life. Because at the end of the day, we cannot bring it down to zero if the tissues exist, but be able to bring it to a level where someone can be functional. We call it functional, but what we are saying is just want to improve the quality of life in terms of happiness, function, don't need someone to care for you. So it's complex, it's difficult, but we work together, the team of the gynecologists and us, and to try and find something, to improve someone's quality.
Okay, you mentioned opioids. Explain.
Oh, so opioids is one of the most strongest painkillers we have in the world. I think Zambia had mentioned that morphine wasn't working for her. Morphine is in that particular class of opioids. They're strong painkillers, but again, they're also associated with their own side effects. And I think you've heard about the opioid crisis in the US, where maybe around 60,000 people a year have died out of an overdose of the opioids. So, but while the US has that problem, we have the other problem here where we don't have opioids. So people who deserve it don't even get. You find 90% of usage of opioids in the world is only by about 17% of the population. Africa, we're hardly getting any. So for us, now that you mentioned opioids, I think just to mention that we have a paucity or scarcity of that, not just the drug sometimes, but also the knowledge in how to use it. I get called upon sometimes and look at treatments people are on, and you can see underdosing or overdosing, or and we work with myself and other colleagues to really train other, including doctors, nurses, because we find in the syllabus in the medical school, really pain gets about an hour out of a 6-year course. So we find people are graduating and they don't know how to evaluate pain, and that's why you can hear people just going around 19 doctors, 18 doctors, 17 doctors before they get someone who's trying to understand what's going on.
Okay, now let's understand the other condition represented here this morning by Laura Litaba. She lives with fibromyalgia. If we can have those graphics on screen. This is a disorder characterized by widespread musculoskeletal pain accompanied by fatigue, sleep, memory, and mood issues. Now, the symptoms associated with fibromyalgia are widespread pain described as a constant dull ache that has lasted for at least 3 months, that occurs on both sides of your body and above and below your waist. Also, fatigue is very common. Patients often wake up tired even after sleeping for many hours. Sleep is often disrupted by pain, and many patients have other sleep disorders such as restless leg syndrome and sleep apnea. And cognitive difficulties, a symptom commonly referred to as fibro fog, impairs their ability to focus, pay attention, and concentrate on mental tasks. Laura, you have been living with this condition for a while now. When you think back, what is the kind of pain? How would you describe the kind of pain you have to live with?
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. And I think for me, my pain began when I was about 9 years old, and I couldn't even tell that it was what you'd consider as fibromyalgia because it begins as small, small things. So first of all, it would begin like a chronic ulcer. Before you know it, I'm having asthmatic problems, and you go to a specialist and they tell you that it's not asthma, and then before you know it, you start having back pain. So it's like a small, slow progression up to the point where I think I was in university in 2016 and I had very intense chest pain. And when I went to see the doctor is like, no, this is rheumatoid arthritis. So I'm like, okay, fine. So let's treat the rheumatoid arthritis. And then the medicine just seemed to not work at all, and the pain continued to increase. So now, just apart from the chronic ulcers or the chest pain, it now became migraines that could not be explained. It became joint pain, nerve pain, literally every pain all over my body. And so by the time now 2016 towards the end was coming, then the doctor said, no, actually let's do some tests and see, because it may be fibromyalgia. And that's when I got my diagnosis. And from there to about 2018, the pain was somewhat manageable. I was able to go to school, I was able to work, I was able to do everything, even though I was in pain, but it wasn't that intense until about now 2018, when the pain just increased on so many levels. And I feel the pain in my nerves, in my joints, migraines, chest pain, and it's a constant daily pain. Yeah.
Wow. And you were diagnosed when you were how old?
I was 21.
And all along, what were you being told before they nailed the diagnosis?
Everything, everything honestly on the book. First of all, they told me it was ulcers and that it would go by the time I'm a teenager. It never went. Then I was told it was asthma. I did a few tests for asthma. They said, no, it's not asthma. They told me it was rheumatoid arthritis. I took the medicines, they did tests and they found it wasn't rheumatoid arthritis. So it's doctors constantly trying to figure out things, especially even now when the migraines set in, because they did CT scans, they did MRI scan, they even did a lupus test on me and they couldn't find anything, and doctors were just literally stranded. So when I went to see a rheumatologist, that's when he did a few pressure point tests and asked me about my history of pain and a variety of other questions, and that's when now he told me it was fibromyalgia.
Okay, and we say, or we've heard, that at times the pain goes into remission, there are times you're fine, and there are times it actually is constant. What is your reality?
What we usually call them is flare-ups. So like probably if I was in a very stressful situation in school, or I was exposed to cold, which is another trigger for me, I'd have the pain last for about 1 week to about a month, and then I'll be fine. So that's why people didn't even know I had it from 2016. But then now, when it came to 2018, I had a case of pneumonia, and that sadly sparked the flare-up with fibromyalgia that I'm currently still in. And I thought it would last the usual 1 month, 2 months, but it just slowly progressed, started affecting my mobility, started affecting literally every single part of my life and my body. Yeah.
If you can describe the kind of pain you deal with, how would you describe it?
Oh, it ranges from everything. Sometimes it's a sharp pain, especially when it comes to the nerves. Right now it's a dull pain. I can feel it in my joints because of being exposed to the cold. Sometimes it feels like electricity pain where it's sudden and then it just quiets down. So it's literally a whole range of the type of pain one experiences with fibro.
Would you say the pain has become less with time, or has it progressed with time?
I'd say it's progressed with time, because like when I started out and when I was first diagnosed, I really didn't have as many symptoms as I have now. But then as the years progress and as I continue to have the condition, I start having new symptoms like IBS then gets on board, costochondritis gets on board, polycystic ovarian syndrome gets on board, adenomyosis gets on board. So these are some of the conditions that I have started developing over the years as I continue suffering with fibro.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. clearly fibromyalgia is another autoimmune condition. And in, in her case, she says it has progressed with time. Is this something that you see with chronic pain?
Yes, maybe just also just to add, so far we do not have a cure for fibromyalgia, and that's the typical picture that things start small, innocuous, sometimes not able to really pinpoint, but over time, with all these additional symptoms, you go to the right doctor, and for fibromyalgia, the right doctor should be able to, pick it up. And so far, and in chronic pain, it's really a bit of a disservice. You do not imagine in the world we don't have, most of the management is symptomatic. What does that mean? We're just sorting out the symptoms, because research is still yet to give us adequate answers of how to go to the root of the problem and sort it out there, so that you don't have, or the issue getting sorted completely. So I think, so in her case for fibromyalgia, again, most doctors, they know what to do in terms of once the diagnosis is got, because that's the other thing that sometimes you might go around, as she said, it's being told it's rheumatoid, being told this, but once a right diagnosis is made, now you can have a better treatment plan. And I forgot to mention that patient education, or someone understanding the condition, is huge in terms of being able to make the disease manageable, because as I said, there's no cure. So it's when those flares come in that you really want to be able to know what to do. Sometimes we found doctors who maybe might not give you the real picture, give the picture of that cure is there, that take this medicine for 2 weeks, you'll be fine. And that sometimes breeds expectations which are not real, and of course that will stress someone, because you expect that I was given this for 2 weeks and this should sort out my condition. Why am I, still feeling all this fatigue, unable to care for my kids or whatever it is? So we work also to set goals for the individual, because everyone's an individual. Might have someone fibromyalgia, it's not so bad, or someone it's really bad, or someone maybe they're not able to get out of bed, and other people are at work, but they're able to function. So there are a variety of approaches towards fibromyalgia.
Yeah. Okay, and we'll talk more about the treatment and management of chronic pain in a moment. There is Sylvester here who's saying, you mean to say there is actually a pain doctor? Now, ladies, with a show of hands, let me know if any of you has actually sought the help of a pain specialist. A show of hands. Show of hands. So, all right. Okay, I guess everybody has, and that's because you've had this chronic illnesses that you have to deal with on a daily. But most people, Dr. do not even know that you exist and what it is that you do for those living with chronic pain. When we come back, we'll talk more about that. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. This morning we're talking about living with chronic pain, and helping us understand this better is Dr. Ngugi Kigera, anesthesiologist and pain specialist, Mary Murugi, living with undifferentiated connective tissue disease, UCTD, and trigeminal neuralgia. My God, these names. Jambi Koikai living with endometriosis. She's an endo warrior. And Laura Litaba living with fibromyalgia. Thank you, ladies. And I think at this point, it is important that we talk about the good and the bad days when it comes to chronic pain, because we've described each of the conditions having certain effects when it comes to pain. For you, Murugi, if you were to describe a good day or a bad day, how would you describe them?
My good day is any day that I wake up with absolutely no pain. I'm energetic. I'll be able to do my tasks from morning to evening. And come evening, if you tell me we meet, I'll still be able to do it. And a bad day for me, it's a day where I've literally not slept the whole night. And you wake up with pain, you still have to go about your day with pain. And it really can get, it's a bad space when I'm having a dark pain day, because that time you take your medication and your pain does not move from point A to point B. And you try and your opioids, nothing is working. So a bad day is a really bad day for me, yeah.
And for you, Jambi?
For me, a good day is when I sleep, because I've lived in pain for so long and I never used to sleep. And then coupled with me being on TV and on radio, and I used to have all these late night shows, I was never sleeping. So a good day for me is I sleep, and I'm grateful to God that I'm not able to sleep. I sleep a lot. On bad days, having lived with pain for so long, I sort of got used to the pain, especially in my pelvic area. I knew how to live with that. But when the pain moved to my chest, that became a new reality that I was not accustomed to. So what happened was, after the surgeries, I developed musculoskeletal issues. So the other two ladies have said, Laura and Murugi said, they mentioned about the cold. So I also suffer from, musculoskeletal issues due to the cold. If I'm exposed to the cold weather, my chest is totally inflamed, and sometimes I'm short of breath, so I have to have heaters on. I have to have a humidifier on at all times. And, I just have like a little mini pharmacy in the house, and I know what to do and when to do it. So good days for me, really, when I'm able to wake up, when I sleep well, when I eat well. And bad days for me are just horrible, when I'm unable to breathe, and I'm unable to stand and carry out, simple tasks. And to some people, those are normal, but to me, it's difficult.
We hear you, Jambi. And Laura, for you?
For me, my good days are when the pain is on a scale of 6 to below, like 1 to 6, which is a day like this, where I'm able to function, even though there's constant pain throughout. But then now my bad days are when it starts shooting to 7, 8, 9, and it's hard to get out of bed. It's hard to even just lift my phone. And sleeping on one position is painful. It's just a mess. So my good days are a day like this, where the pain is at like 6, but when it starts going higher, it's just a mess.
So, Laura, are you saying you never experience a day where you wake up and there is no pain?
No, sadly, I've not experienced that for almost 5, 6 years now. It's a constant daily pain. It's just now, the range is now what it differs with the day. So some days it'll be at 2 and I'll be able to go to school like I was before 2018. But since 2018 to now, it's been moving around 6 to 10, 6 to 10, 6 to 10. Yeah.
Oh my. Now, Daktari, earlier on you said apart from treating the chronic pain or managing is also being very aware that this chronic pain is coming to impact on other parts of this person's life. So, for example, Laura does not know a day without pain. How do you handle such a case?
Well, this is something, until I got into this field of pain medicine, was strange, because for us, especially when we work, like for example in theater, for us is want zero pain, So when you come into this other realm of chronic pain, and what they've looked at over the last 50 years is that trying to achieve zero pain in some of these chronic pain conditions, it's been very difficult, because one, we still don't understand a lot about them. two, we don't have very good medications for them. And the few things which have been done and found to work, and work here, it means that is someone, you set goals which are important. For example, she said that to wake up and sit at a desk maybe, or to wake up and go to work, or that becomes a goal to work with. Does that mean that it's necessarily pain of 0? No. But to be at a level where you're able to function, even as much as a pain score of 1 to 2. So it takes a bit of it takes a bit of time to get to that level where you have to understand that sometimes the goals for treatment are not necessarily pain score 0, because the science, we still don't have the science to be able to give a pain score 0. And that's why the best results we achieve through what we call working together with a team. For example, as I said, you'd have the primary person, say, and a rheumatologist on board. We'd also have someone for physical therapy, some exercise, because we know that even when you have pain, because doing some exercise doesn't necessarily hurt the tissues, because usually there's a fear, I'm having a bit of pain in my hand. If I exercise, I might make it worse. But generally, it's been found that if you, through the team, we're able to change a bit of what we call cognition, or the ideas that try this, try push a bit more, we find that in the end we get better results. And better results not necessarily pain 0, but able to do things that would say other people without chronic illness should be able to do. Yeah, so for us is changing the scope of what the target is, because if we target 0, and research has been shown that it's difficult to get pain 0, we induce stress. Actually, people get stressed that, well, how come I'm still in pain? But if you target at, you give other targets that work with that individual, because again, it's an individual thing, then you find you get better results working with this team kind of approach.
Okay. Now, Boruge, you mentioned that there are times even opioids will not work. So what are the general treatment and management methods that you've applied to cope with chronic pain?
So apart from medication, which is my number one, because I mean, without it, you can't function. So I still do my drugs. Per day, I do 17 tablets. Apart from that, I will do my painkillers if the pain is too much. And I've also applied, I use heat and cold therapy. That's use of either the cold packs or the hot water bottles. And then I try swim a lot. I used to, it's the only exercise that I can currently do is swimming, because I injured my back in the gym. So I find that swimming, takes off the pain on the muscles. It's a low impact exercise. So I do that. I also try rest. I advocate for resting every time of the day. During the day, I try get, even if it's 10 minutes break, I will just do a 10 minutes break, lie down. So apart from that, I also tried, lifestyle changes, not necessarily meaning, changing everything, but I just try to eat things that will not make me feel more fatigued. And yeah, basically, and also I see a physiotherapist. Currently, I think I've done over 250 sessions of physiotherapy in 4 years. So I also incorporate a psychotherapist, because something with chronic illness, it will drain you spiritually, emotionally. And there are days you can't just start the day without crying. So at that point, I usually know I need to see a psychiatrist, just to help you cope with the pain, cope with the changing symptoms, because every day I have something new. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And for you, Laura, what's the story?
It's a constant trial and error. So at first I was given a whole box of medications to take from the doctor. And the challenge is with some of these medicines, they would work for patient A, but wouldn't work for patient B. And most of the medicines that was the case for me. So I'd try them, they'd give me worse side effects, I'd put them aside. I've tried herbal medicine, Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it's not worked. Tried different diets. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it's not worked. Done physiotherapy, and like Murugi, swimming at least is one exercise that has helped me and is not as involving as the others. But honestly, every day it's a trial and error. I can't say right now that there's that one medicine or that one regime that I've tried that has helped me even just be on a functioning level. So it's a constant trial and error.
Okay, now you say you swim, and the last I checked, you actually do use crutches to move around. So does the swimming help you with the mobility bit of it?
Oh yes, yes, yes. It makes me lighter, especially when you're in water, the way physics and water works.
Yeah.
So when I'm in water, I'm lighter and I'm able to move all my muscles just generally and less stressful. But then now when I'm like in a gym setting, now that's where like if I'm lifting weights and all those things, that becomes challenging. But yes, I still use the mobility aids, crutches and wheelchair. They're just to help me. It's not that I can't walk. It's not that I can't move or hold things. I can, but then they're just to help me move around, help me do normal things. So like even going to the mall, use a wheelchair, because even just walking from the main gate to the gate of the supermarket, I literally have no energy to continue from then on. I'll not be able to walk, I'll not be able to move. So yes, that's one of the things that I use to move around.
Is diet something that you have also had to change around?
Yes, yes, yes. Again, even with that, it's trial and error. So some people would say stay away from carbs, and then you stay away from carbs and realize, okay, wait, this is not working for me. What if we stay away from this type of carb? So as I say, I don't think I can clearly say I have come up with the solution or with the formula that works. But yes, I've had to stay away from certain foods, include foods that I wasn't eating in my diet before, to just help and manage the pain.
When you say you haven't come up with a formula, is it that you are trying to figure it out, or you're trying to figure it out with the help of a doctor?
It's with the help of a doctor.
Wow.
So I usually go see him. The challenge is the expenses that go into living with chronic illness is just a mess. And so what we try and do with my doctor is we try not to go too often, but we constantly are communicating via WhatsApp, thankfully, and all these other mediums. And he usually tells me, try this, and we try it and it doesn't work, or try this. And we're like, okay, let's try this at a lower dose. Okay, no, okay, try and not eat this. Okay, maybe try and eat this. So it's working with the rheumatologist, and as Mugi said, working even with therapists, psychotherapist, yes. Yes. So just working with all these different people to try and make me at the end of the day functional and being able to work.
Okay, now for you, Jambi, are there things that you do not eat anymore that you think probably give you a harder time when you're going through the pain cycle?
Yeah, but with diet came a lot of challenges for me because I was very underweight. I've been underweight for a long time. When I was going for treatment, I was 36 kilos. So I'd cut out protein, I'd cut out dairy products, I'd cut out animal protein, and I'd cut out dairy products. And I say, diet change is not the same for everybody. The results are not the same for everybody. So the first thing the doctors told me when I got to the States was that I needed to add weight. And I was also very anemic, so I needed to eat. And I did eat, and I added about 12 kilograms, and I came back home after treatment. And I've also been going through a lot of anxiety and, medical trauma. And that's something else that needs to be addressed. When you've constantly been living in pain for so long, and, your life revolves around pain, then now you have this new normal that you have to get accustomed to. You're not in pain, as much, or you're not in pain. And this is a very strange thing because your life has been defined by pain, and the medical trauma that comes with it, and the depression and anxiety. But for me, diet, I had to incorporate a lot of things that would, increase my blood flow. I had to incorporate a lot of herbs that would help with my respiratory system as well. I had to learn about all those things. And I also had to exercise. I did a lot of hydrotherapy. I did a lot of respiratory therapy as well. I did physiotherapy. I also had to see a psychologist as well because the trauma was too much. I didn't even know that I was going through it. And it was only my behavior that showed that I was going through trauma, medical trauma. And my doctors on the other side decided that they booked me in for to see a psychotherapist. And rest. I sleep a lot. I'm not even ashamed. Like I haven't slept because I knew I was gonna do this interview. So I'm kind of sleepy right now, and I'm gonna sleep all day. And that for me works for my body. It rejuvenates my body, my cells. And sleep is one of those things that really, really works for me. Exercise as well. I do a lot of cardio. I can do weight. I do cardio because I'm still not very strong. So I do cardio. Swimming for me is a bit tough. I've never really known how to swim. I tried it with hydrotherapy, but it's a bit difficult. So I prefer to do cardio. Walk. I walk a lot as well. And I drink a lot of water. And I eat a lot of fruits. And I read. And I journal as well.
Okay. All right, ladies. And clearly, Dr. you can hear each of them has found a way to figure out what works for them. And for Laura, she's the one who has to do the trial and error as she goes along. But one thing they all agree on is that the mental health bit of it is so critical. Talk about that.
Well, I think from the start I mentioned that in chronic pain we do have not just the physical problem, but we also have a contributor from our psychology. We also have a contribution. We know that culture, religion, family, our settings, social settings, all these things come together to actually shape the kind of pain experience someone would have. And again, also for managing, we also use the same kind of approach to manage each of these, the psychology of it, your surrounding, your environment, your culture, what you can work with. So, and that's why in the last maybe 20 years or so, a lot of pain clinics are moving to what we call interdisciplinary or several different people within a clinic. Because what we found is that, and I think the bear witness is that just one way, either medication only sometimes is not enough. You also need to incorporate some psychology. Sometimes you also need to incorporate physiotherapy in it. So clinics which are coming up with all these under one roof are actually making a bigger difference than what we have. Maybe you come, we just do injections only or medication only. So it points that this is what is needed, and I think they bear witness to that. Yeah.
And still on treatment and management, I think even listening to what needs to be done or adjusted to live with chronic pain, there's a cost to it. How do we help those that have to deal with this on a constant?
Well, I can tell you that several studies done in the world have shown chronic pain is one of the largest, not just on a personal toll in terms of your health and your mental health, as you have mentioned, also on the pocket. If you see spending in the US or Europe on chronic pain conditions, it's crazy. It's out of this world. Why? One, I think it's been mentioned, someone's always going to the hospital quite frequently. They're on all these expensive medications. Not one, usually 5, 6, 7, 8 different kinds of things. You need to see multiple people. So you come in today, see your rheumatologist, go and see your pain specialist, go see your physiotherapist, go see your psychotherapist. And so because of that, the usage of utilization of healthcare is very, very expensive for chronic pain. And now come to Africa. One, access is a problem. If you go to most basic of places of hospitals, they might not know what to do. If you have chronic pain, you have to come to the big centers to be able to even get a diagnosis. So access is a problem. Number two, specialists are few, very, very few. I think you asked me, is there a pain doctor? And
yeah.
I'll tell you how yes, they are, and I'll tell you my journey. But anyway, now that you asked about cost, insurance sometimes, they might not cover everything. You might be able to cover some aspects, or they have limits. They can say maybe just 10 physiotherapy sessions, and that's it, and someone requires so much more. So it's a hit on the pocket. I know many of my clients who've come, and by the time, you know, after 1 year, they're selling off cows, selling off their shambas, putting off maybe taking someone to university because they have to use that money to spend on the family. So it's the whole ecosystem is very unfair to people. The whole health ecosystem is quite unfair to people with chronic pain.
Okay, and when we come back, we look at the stigma associated with living with chronic pain. If you have listened carefully, some of the symptoms that each of the conditions represented today has a lot to do with something that you cannot see. They feel it, but you really cannot see. And because it stops them from doing a lot of the day-to-day activities, you could easily think maybe they're lazy, maybe they're pretending, but they'll tell us more about the experience in a moment. But before we take that short break, we had asked you earlier on, do you live with chronic pain? How do you cope with it? Talk to us. That hashtag is new normal. We have Gillian Kendagor, who says, I've been having painful headaches since 2009 to date. Whenever I undergo tests, no disease has ever been found. What could be the problem? Ask the doctor, please. Matthews Ondoro, I was bitten by a snake when I was young. To date, I feel pain. I feel knee joint pain whenever it's cold or when it's about to rain heavily that I can't even go upstairs. What could that be? All right, before we take a short break, Daktari, can you speak on those two queries?
Headaches, if you look at what they call the global disease burden, they've gone around the world and checked what are the conditions which are, you know, affecting the population. Headaches come up tops, and headaches not just a one-off, but headaches that persist. So just like he's mentioned, probably needs to see first of all a neurologist with the tests that have been done, and be able to, because there are many classifications, many types of headaches or many causes of headaches. And then from there, we take it from there, because we find that majority of headaches are handled very well by neurologists. Only when sometimes they need certain procedures, because there are certain procedures which can be done for different types of headaches which are a bit resistant to usual medications. That's when we get to come in and help. But at the end of the day, it's a cascade that you start, say at that level, then move on to a neurologist. You get a better evaluation there about your headache. And if there's a need to ever refer someone to a pain specialist for particular, and it's usually for a particular intervention, either a nerve block, maybe to a nerve supplying certain area of the scalp, which has been shown to help with the resistant, we call them resistant headaches. So that's what I would say for the first gentleman. Okay,
the second one, he got bitten by a snake when he was young, and since then that area still pains.
Again, it would be difficult to say much if I'm not seeing the person in front of me. But we do know that trauma to the leg or the hand, be it snake bites, sometimes induce changes in the nervous system, and you get this chronic pain, and we call it a complex regional pain syndrome, and it's a big term. But what basically it says that the nervous system or the nerves have changed because of the initial trauma, in this case the snake bite, and sometimes they make the skin to change, bring in pain, and that has a particular intervention. So if they don't get any help, they can come to, we don't have many pain clinics in Kenya, they're not so many, but if they're there, in fact, they can come for an evaluation.
So they can reach out to you. Yes. All right, then. We take a short break on Your World. When we come back, the stigma associated with living with chronic pain. Stay with us.
Malkia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku.
Piga *444# utunukiwe Credo double premium candles. It is made of pure, fully refined paraffin wax. It doesn't have smoke. It has long burning hours. It is non-drip. It doesn't smell.
Always smile and walk with Sumo Candle from Rock Industries Limited. For inquiries, visit our offices at Ndume Road off Lunga Lunga Road, behind Carton Manufacturers near Sinai Stage. You can also talk to us through 0722 575 619.
Did you know? Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory you can open an account and lipa pole pole at your convenience? Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory you can get customized sizes according to your roof plan to avoid wastage? Did you know Ruiru Mabati Factory offers free delivery countrywide within 72 hours?
To order, call us now on 0111 050 700. Ruiru Mabati Factory, mali safi kwa bei poa.
May God bless us and bless Kenya as we strive to become one nation, one people that are going to grow and celebrate each other. Let us celebrate our unity.
Lo haría sin pensarlo dos veces, porque te quiero ahí y hasta lucero.
It's always a full house this season when the family comes together.
To reconnect.
One thing we do, we watch GoTV. We love it.
It is everyone's favorite place this festive season.
Usimiss out. Get GoTV decoder kwa shilingi 1999.
GoTV. Love it.
Rock Industries Limited wanakuletea bidhaa za plastiki zinazotumika kila siku maishani, kuanzia matumizi ya jikoni, usafi na shuleni, miongoni mwa matumizi mengine. Chakula kitamu sio upishi tu, kikiwa kitamu kisha kipakuliwe katika vyombo maridadi kinakuwa kitamu zaidi. Ndio maana Rock Industries Limited wanahakikisha mezani na jikoni kunapendeza kwa kukuletea vyombo maridadi vya plastiki. Vyombo hivi ni vya viwango vya juu, vyenye rangi nzuri ya kupendeza, umbo wa kuvutia na vinadumu. Baadhi ya bidhaa za plastiki kutoka Rock Industries Limited ni vikombe, glasi, sahani, jagi, begi, bakuli, vijiko, vichana na kadhalika. Na bidhaa hizi muhimu zinapatikana katika duka lililo karibu nawe pamoja na maduka ya jumla kwa bei nafuu. Kwa maelezo zaidi, wasiliana na Rock Industries Limited kupitia nambari 0722575619 au 0736028181.
We are Nation, Africa's independent media brand. We are committed to empowering all Africans, from the young to the old, from the curious to the educated, and from the heart of the cities to the rural areas. We are Nation. Join us, because if you want to get far, you do it together. Nation. Empower Africa.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja, even as we focus on living with chronic pain. Now, Thailand's health minister helped plant cannabis seedlings as the government nurtures plans to harvest the multi-billion-dollar potential of medical marijuana. The kingdom in 2018 became the first country in Southeast Asia to legalize medical marijuana, although many Thais have long used the herb in traditional treatments. The government has invested in the extraction extraction, distillation and marketing of cannabis oils for use in the health industry. Now, the government wants to further broaden Thailand's laws on cultivating cannabis. This comes even as the UN Commission on Narcotic Drugs voted to reclassify cannabis last week, taking it off the strict Schedule 4 list that includes dangerous and highly addictive drugs such as heroin. Now, a move that could ease restrictions on research into marijuana's therapeutic use. And it's interesting that that story ties in with a question here from Davis Craze, who is actually listening or watching us all the way from the United States and asking, is marijuana legal there? It actually would work for fibromyalgia, Daktari. Where are the parameters when it comes to medical marijuana in this country?
Well, I'll strictly speak as a medical profession, and because marijuana is quite emotive on many levels. And I can say, where I trained for my pain training, we used to prescribe it. This was in Israel for certain category of patients. So in Kenya, it's not legal, so you can't find it. So we don't have CBD, we don't have, it's not legal in Kenya.
Yeah. Okay, so you would not even consider it for any condition if you've tried all the opioids and it has refused?
As I said, if I was working in a different jurisdiction where that is available, because for doctors, we always look at the best interest of the patient.
Yes.
So for example, in certain conditions, sometimes higher levels of multiple sclerosis, we used to prescribe it, and but under regulation. It's not just... so for us in our country, it's still not legal and therefore not available in terms of as a prescription that you can get and go and fill up and use.
Okay. Now, I know last week there was movement in as far as legislation of the same even here in the country. And ladies, I'm wondering, considering the experience you have with pain, if this was legalized as a medical treatment, is this something that you would think about, seeing that some of you are saying even opioids have not worked for you? Probably just a show of hands, if you could. Okay, so clearly there is a need for the same, and we'll keep on following up on the developments around this. But before we get to all that, let's hear about the stigma associated with living with chronic pain. As we said, a lot of it, you will not get to see it, but those living with chronic pain live this reality on a daily. Murugi, have you dealt with the stigma?
Thankfully, I've not dealt with stigma. And I think one thing that really helped me was I am really vocal about my condition. I don't hide about it. And I was living a normal life until 30. And so when it happened, it opened to a different world where someone is seeing you, you look normal, you look happy, you're smiling, but deep down what you're going through is something totally different. And I'm in support groups and you find, or even people send you a message and they tell you, my mother can't believe I'm unwell. What do I do in such a situation? So it's really heartbreaking when you read such messages, because family is meant to be your first point of support during chronic illnesses. And one thing I think I'd tell people is just trying to educate people or people close to you. It goes a long way. And with chronic illnesses, I think two categories of people who really need to know the truth is your family and your employer. So once those two know about it, I really don't see why you should focus on what other people are telling you. Apparently you're pretending or not. So that really goes a long way.
Okay, and speaking of which, how is your support system?
I'm thankful I have 360 or above 360 support. That's from my family, my employer, my friends. So they really understand me. But as I said, it's a world that no one has heard of. So when you tell someone you have trigeminal, they first wonder, what is that? So you have to, explain to them like a standard 2 child this is what happens, the unpredictability that comes with the disease. Because one of the things with chronic illnesses, and I think that's why people say you're faking, is the unpredictability. I'd be seated smiling right now, the next hour you're admitted in hospital. So I think that really, cuts across. So the unpredictability really, puts a lot. Someone is wondering, Murugi was fine yesterday. What's really going on? Yeah.
Okay. And for you, Laura, what's your experience?
At first, when I was diagnosed with fibro in 2016, I remember even telling my friends, oh, I have a condition called fibromyalgia, and this is what it is. And they're like, okay. And they move on because they look at you and you're fine. You're walking, you're talking, you're laughing, you're able to do everything. But I now realized as now it got to 2018 and I started using mobility aids and things like those to move around, people started now taking it more seriously, and they're like, wait, you're actually unwell, like you're actually sick. So the thing that I'm grateful for is that the people I have told have believed me. And that's been my family, my friends, relatives, those who are close to me have been supporting me, have been helping me. But then I know there are usually some weird times where, like today, someone would see me walking with 2 crutches, tomorrow they'd see me walking with 1, the next day they see me on a wheelchair, and they ask me, hey, what's happening? And it's because, as Murigi says, you know how your day will be when you wake up. You wake up and your hands will be, okay, we can manage. Then you manage. You wake up and your back is like, nope, we're not getting up, but you still need to do things. You still need to run errands and all these things. But the one thing for me that I had to give up was an 8-to-5 job, because most of the employers were not understanding, how do you have an illness that today you're fine, tomorrow you're not well, and then for the next 1 week you can't come. So I've had to now look for online things to do at a more easy pace as opposed to an 8-to-5 job.
And before I get to Jambi, Burugi, have you lost opportunities because of the conditions you live with or the chronic pain that you have to deal with?
No, I've not lost. And I'm able to work 8-to-5. Yeah, so despite the challenges, I somehow do it, yeah.
You are blessed, 1 in a million, I tell you. Jambi, what is your experience?
My experience was not very positive. I lost out on a lot of opportunities. And it was very hard for me, especially during school. When I was in campus, I'd miss out on a lot of classes. And that meant that I had to keep on rewinding. I had to keep on repeating courses in campus. A degree that should have taken me, the last degree I did, should have taken me 4 years, took me 8 years. And then when I started working at, ask for off days, I started out as a news anchor. And I really liked it because it was something challenging for me. I was always off. I would take 2 weeks off in a month, and that was unattainable. So they had to let me go. And so I just decided I had to find a way of making, my career work for me. So I decided, okay, fine, let me focus on radio and let me focus on doing reggae gigs. And that made me more flexible to plan around the pain. When it comes to stigma, endometriosis is very stigmatized because we're talking about menstruation, and due to our African traditions and beliefs, we don't really openly talk about menstruation and menstrual health related issues. We still have a lot of work to do. There's still people who believe that, whatever I was going through or whatever any other endo warrior is going through is witchcraft or they're cursed. And it's not witchcraft and they're not cursed, it's just a biological malfunction. And so we have a lot of work to do in terms of raising awareness in regards to reproductive health care. The other thing with chronic pain, as you have seen, it's evident in all of us, is that these diseases are invisible diseases. You can't see them, but we're dying in pain, And for me, people only took it seriously when they saw pictures of me online with tubes all over, my chest, and I was struggling to breathe, struggling to walk, and then people are like, oh, wow. So this is really, really serious. So now you have more and more women coming out and saying, I'm battling endometriosis, I need help. What do I do? Where can I go? And, women are coming out and saying, I'm also 1 in 10, I have been battling this disease. And that's a really good step in the right direction.
Okay, and that is why we're even having this episode today on living with chronic pain, because clearly there is a gap in as far as the information around dealing with chronic pain is concerned. From your experience, Daktari, what would be the best way to ensure that all and sundry understand what chronic pain is and support those that live with this?
Well, to ask me to say one thing is a bit tough, but I can say maybe just to add slightly on the stigma that there's also stigma from the healthcare system.
Yes.
Because you will find people do not understand. What do you mean you're in pain? We've done all the tests. Maybe we can't see anything, but how come you're in pain? We did a blood test. So you find some of that also really impacts negatively on clients seeking healthcare service, and you find some end up now, moving away from the healthcare system because they feel the healthcare system is not understanding where they're coming from. So stigma is also on that other side. And so for one thing I would say is maybe if on many levels, from the government level, if it was mentioned that chronic pain costs this economy big time. People are not working, people are spending time in hospitals, all the medication being used, MRI is being done all the time. So it costs the economy big time. So maybe one way is for the government just to acknowledge that we have this problem. And we know generally that most problems handled early, they're cheaper in the long run if you're talking economy. If that pain, chronic pain is sorted much earlier, you find down the road you spend less. But if it's not sorted, you find now the changes in the nerves has already occurred, in the spinal cord. So now to unchange that is more difficult, and therefore you tend to. So at government level is just to acknowledge that this problem exists, and maybe get on board stakeholders to be able to, one, influence even change the training from doctors level. We have very few opportunities in Kenya, actually none, to train in what is called pain, the specialty of pain. Someone has to go outside the country to get additional training to come and be able to run like a pain clinic and others. So the other thing is about funding for the healthcare needs. It's expensive condition. It's really expensive. Not only that, it also brings in all this disability. As you said, people lose opportunities. People can't. So if in a house, if someone is a breadwinner, they can't go work, and they also have kids. In the West, they are well taken care of. If you have some form of disability, that should not make you live, say, a life of either pecuniary, you don't have money or something of the sort. The government comes in to support your healthcare needs and also your day-to-day needs. So there are many levels to intervene for make chronic pain better for here in Kenya.
And even when it comes to jobs, as you've heard, some of Laura and Jambi have had to relinquish jobs that they actually loved because the employers did not understand. How can this be averted?
Well, I think there's a bigger issue of maybe labor laws. I don't know. I'm not an expert there, but I would imagine there's a bigger issue of labor laws, or when do you release someone? If someone misses work due to an illness, can you relieve them? So that's one aspect which I don't know much about. But I know the other one is that, and you see it in the West, where we have some companies are able to fashion their work around outcomes. What we need an employee to be able to do, not necessarily that the employee is coming in 8 to 5. So if you're in that kind of job environment where, and COVID has shown this can work, that, things can be changed to keep this talent performing at the level we want, and it's a win-win situation. So for the work environment, that is one. So here also employers don't understand. They know malaria, 2 days, 3 days, you get better, come back to work. They know you appendicitis, have surgery, 1 week, come back to work. But where you have remissions, flare-ups, and someone on the outside, they look okay, is something most people cannot really put together in their mind.
And definitely with more doctors understanding it, then it would help support the employee with the necessary documentation when it calls for it. Okay, and ladies, I'd like to understand, because I have followed each of you individually on social media, and you're very vocal about your journey, and you look like you're smiling through it all. But really, I'm sure there are days where you wake up and it's not really hunky-dory. What is that one thing that helps you keep waking up every day and showing up? Jambi.
I'd like to say this whole condition made me get deeper on a spiritual level with God. My relationship with God, it got deeper because of what I was going through. And so in those moments of pain, I always just talk to God. I'm like, God, we've come from so far. I mean, to be honest, just see me through this. And I'm so fatigued, and it's so depressing, it's frustrating. And in those moments, I always talk to God. And I also have a very strong support system. That's my mom and my sister, who've always been with me since the onset. So they're always there for me. So in those days, I just talk to God, and I have mom and my sister. And, sometimes I just sit in silence and just wing it out. I feel it. I acknowledge the pain, I feel the emotions, but I don't let them control me.
Very encouraging. Laura, for you, you said for years you have not known a day without pain. What keeps you going?
For me, one of the things that keep me going is waking up every day and seeing myself here, because it honestly takes a lot to finish a night in pain and wake up and be able to face it. So the fact that I'm able to wake up and I find that I'm still here, I'm like, okay, another day to fight, another day to make this day work. And as Jambi has said, just looking unto God, because you wake up saying, honestly, I can't do this day. I just can't. I don't have the energy. I don't have the strength. And then 6 p.m. comes and you're like, wow, look at that, I've made it. And so just my hope and faith in God, my family members holding me and my friends holding me when I'm not able to, those are the different things that have kept me going. But it takes a long while mentally for you to get to that place where you're like, okay, this is something I'm going to deal with for God knows how long. And I need the energy or the strength or the support. So it takes a while to get there, but I'm glad that at least I got to that place eventually.
Oh, wow. We applaud you for that, Laura. And Murugi, for you, you are always smiling. It's until you sent me this video about, neuralgia. And I'm like, oh, my word, we never get to see this.
Yes, so I usually say if you show the world what you go through, I think everyone will be traumatized, because someone who has seen me with a trigeminal flare will definitely know. But what keeps me going every day is my willpower and just my dreams and goals, knowing that, yes, I had these dreams, they were shortchanged because of an illness, but it doesn't mean that I can't reach that goal with a crooked path. And the days, just as Jambi has said, and Laura, you can't do it. And you just focus on God. And illness actually also led me closer to God. And I wake up with my devotion. The days you can't even pray. You just say, God, thank you that, yes, I'm feeling like this, but just opening my eyes is a blessing, because it means I'm still alive. So, and also my family, those days when I can't pray, I just usually call them. And since I can't talk, I just write a message, stand with me with prayer. And I really think, I know prayer goes a long way. It goes a long way. Even when you're feeling dark, it goes a long way. And another thing I also do is I accept the situation, that this is the now, things have changed. I will not focus on the past. Life has definitely changed for me. So I will accept. And as Jambi has said, acknowledge the feelings, but don't let the feelings control situation and how your life will be.
And you touch on something that is very critical, Daktari, and it's one thing to go to the specialist to get the medication and to know how to live with this condition, but I think the biggest win is to actually accept the condition you have to deal with. Talk about this.
Yeah, that's a big one, because we are so used to probably, as I said, diseases which come 2 days, 1 week, and like an infection, and that goes, and you move on. But when confronted with this like chronic pain situation, where the chance of cure really might not be there, for many people, sometimes even doctors to communicate. It's a challenge. So you find, because I get a few patients who are saying, I know I've been told if I get this injection today, if you do this spinal injection, my pain goes completely. And you really have to calm down and show them, what this condition means for you. It means maybe some things in the future might get worse. And therefore, we really have to tune our treatment goals to things that are possible for you. So, and because of that, sometimes you get, and it's okay, people shop around for doctors because they don't like they say, that doctor told me something I don't want to hear, that I'll have to be on medication for a long time. And it's okay. Acceptance is a journey. It's not a one-day event. But it is important for someone to understand their condition. It's so important because once you understand your condition and you understand what limits maybe it has, then you continue your life to take a better trajectory for what, or you change your goals. Like for example, if someone wanted to be an athlete, now instead of saying I probably will still be a professional athlete with this, chances are, are very slim. So better to change your goal to something else and still achieve, live a better life. So for chronic pain, acceptance and understanding your condition is key towards achieving some level of quality of life.
Okay. Now, even as we bring this conversation to an end, as I started off earlier, is by saying we've had a difficult year. We have experienced pain in different ways, whether it's a loss of a loved one, loss of an income, loss of a job, loss of good health. Loss and pain has been part and parcel of us. Now, these three ladies represented here live with chronic pain on a daily. They cannot put a pose to it. It is something that is biological and it is with them. But as I've said, they actually show up every day. So ladies, what would be your words of encouragement to all of us, even as we face a year that has really stretched all of us? Jambi.
This is a very unprecedented year for many people who have never been in a situation like this. I've been living a pandemic, I've been living a pandemic sort of lifestyle since 2015. And I just want to encourage everybody watching this show today that it will get better. Just don't give up. Just sit, like I say, acknowledge the feelings of sadness, acknowledge the feelings of pain, and don't let it control you. But most importantly, use this time to think creatively, to think outside the box. Even if you've lost your job, think outside the box to create solutions and solutions around yourself. Because I know people do not have money, people don't have funds maybe to start a business. But just think around, something that will create a solution. Identify a problem in your community, in your locality that will, identify a problem and then create a solution. Most importantly, keep praying and keep the faith. God is real and God is still in the business of doing miracles, and I'm one of them.
Amen to that. Thank you, Jambi. For you, Murugi?
So my advice would be, find joy. It has been a tough year, but joy starts with being gratitude, practicing the act of gratitude. And it can be as simple as just when you wake up, just saying thank you. Because yes, we didn't know how this year will be, but here we are. And another thing is keep God in your life. He will do marvelous things for you. Days when you feel you can't go on, look up to God. He will give you that strength to go on.
Amen to that. And Laura?
For me, as Roki has said, find that one thing that makes you happy, even in whatever state you are. So if it's buying a snack, if it's watching a movie, just that one thing that will make you smile and be happy even in that moment or whatever you're experiencing. And apart from that, the one statement I always tell myself every day is we've already hit rock bottom. So now from here, it's all the way up. So to find ways to be better even in this situation, to find new opportunities even in this situation, to open up my mind to different things that I would not have even thought of if I wasn't in this condition. So yeah, keep the hope, keep the faith.
Thank you, Laura. And of course, the Daktari, for those that are finding out today, there's a paying doctor, and also emphasizing on the importance of actually sorting your services.
Well, there's a mantra we use that really don't live in pain, and especially if you don't even have a name or a diagnosis to it. So because once you don't know what it is, it's really difficult to give a targeted a plan for how to manage it. So what I can say is that anyone living in pain without an answer, they need to get an answer. If it means seeing specialists outside of your town or city or locality, wherever you are, until you find that answer, because without a diagnosis, it's difficult, because we don't just treat pain, out of, so getting a diagnosis is important. Number two is that work with your medical teams as much as possible to be able to, to achieve goals that you set together. Another one is understand your condition. Once you get that diagnosis, with your medical team, Google with good sites, good support groups for arthritis, for RA, and many other conditions, to help you understand your condition, and putting all that together, you're able to get better, better goals or better outcome. So for us in Kenya, we are very few. We're maybe about 10 in terms of pain specialists. Our background is we start medical school as doctors. And then you do a specialty in anesthesia and critical care. I also still work in theatre, give medication for people to get surgeries done, for mothers to deliver painless, and we also work in pain clinics, because after that now we have to go abroad and get specialty training in pain management. So we are few. Clinics in Kenya, I'm sure there are not more than 6 clinics. So you can see for a population of 47 million, trying to access, but as I said, most specialists, before you get to the pain level, they'll be able to sort out a lot of those other conditions. It's just a few of them who get referred to the pain clinic for very specific challenges that are raising, with control. So we are there, we are few.
Okay. We need to improve on that number if what we've had this morning is anything to go by. But thank you, Dr. Ngugi Kigera. He is anesthesiologist and pain specialist. Mary Murugi, who joined us, living with undifferentiated connective tissue disease, UCTD, and trigeminal neuralgia. Jambi Koikai, who lives with endometriosis. She's actually an endo warrior, very vocal about the same. And Laura Litaba, living with fibromyalgia. Ladies, I salute you and thank you for sharing your stories and being candid on the same. Well, tomorrow we shift our focus on the 16 days of activism. Remember, this is still ongoing from November 25th to December 10th, and these are the days where there is activism against gender-based violence. So how are we doing as a country, and what are those loopholes or gaps that have now has COVID glared or given us an idea about during this season? We'll take a look at those tomorrow. Join us then.